What's up guys, Tech Guy here with Monkey Kaboom, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a minimalistic and simplistic triangular logo. This logo is inspired by 1950s clean line design styles and is currently the choice of many graphic designers, the style that they're using in 2017. So let's go ahead and jump right in here. This logo is actually inspired by this background image. Let's say a client just sends you this background image and they say, hey, I want a logo and here's the company name and you know, what can you give me? Well, the first thing I see is all these trees. I think they're pine trees or some sort of evergreen tree. But first thing I see is these triangles. So that's very inspiring. So I've already drawn out two guidelines for the center of the document. I'm going to grab my polygon tool here, set it to 3 sides, and hold shift to snap that to an angle, make it nice and big, and then drag this over and snap it to the center. Now it doesn't have to snap vertically, we can move it around a little bit later on. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to give it a quick color overlay so it's different from the original. That's fine, red. I don't even have to switch it. Then we're going to go to Edit, Transform Path. We're going to change that scale. We're going to scale it down very, very slightly. Not much at all while holding Shift. I just want a very thin line around the edge. Hit Apply, and now we're going to have to use our arrow keys because the weird thing is, even though you're holding Shift, the triangle isn't 100% symmetrical. It changes, so on the top and the sides, slightly different proportions. So just use your arrow keys to move that layer around where it looks pretty good, which that actually looks really good right there. And we're going to go ahead and rasterize that layer by right-clicking on it and rasterize. Grab your magic wand tool and select that entire image. Turn it off. Select the white triangle, which is the bottom one, with that outline still selected. We're going to go to Select and Inverse, and now I'm just going to create a new layer mask. And there you go. There's the layer mask. There's your outline of the triangle. Now we're going to come in here. I'm going to go ahead and create the text. It needs to go in here. WILDER. Wilderness. And I'm going to make a few changes to this font just to bring it back to normal because it's all out of proportion right now. I'm going to use a font called Nexia Bold. This is one of my favorite fonts. It's very, very clean lines. It's a little bit too curvy in some cases, but it works perfect for what we're going for here. I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to select that triangle layer, the outlined triangle, and I'm going to create 2 new guidelines right here along the edge. Basically, I don't want the wilderness text to be beyond these end points here. So that's why I created those guidelines, and now I can highlight the text. I can change the font size, make sure it's centered. Go ahead and change the font size where it shrinks it down and fits it within those guidelines. Okay, let's go ahead and give a color overlay to both of those. I'm going to change them to like a tannish color. A little bit lighter on the tan. There we go. And then color overlay the wilderness. I'm just double clicking on the layer to change the color overlay. Now, next thing I want to do is I want to drag 2 more guidelines out. I want to find where wilderness is in the tool, the ruler over here. I want to find where it lines up. So that looks like it's about 7 1/4 almost. I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to drag up to that first line just past 7. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom And I'm going to kind of just eyeball it and see where it looks even with the top and bottom, which that's not quite even. I'm still holding shift. I'm not being quite as accurate as I normally am because we're basing this upon the image in the background. That looks pretty good. We'll make that work. In fact, because I know this bottom line's off just a hair, I'm going to grab my selection tool and I'm going to use the arrow keys to move that text so it looks centered. Next, I'm going to grab my text tool. I'm going to click at the end of the S of wilderness, and I'm going to type in outfitters. Outfitters, and I'm going to change this to Nexia Light, which is a much thinner version of that font, which I really love, and I'm going to fit it within the triangle. So there you go, Wilderness Outfitters. And lastly, I'm going to click off that layer. I'm going to create one more layer of text, and this is going to be the established or since or your established date. I'm going to shrink that down slightly more. I'm going to use a font. I believe it was called Perpetua. Basically, it's a variation of the Times New Roman type. I didn't mean to create a new layer there. Variation of a Times New Roman. It's a little bit thinner, a little bit cleaner, a little bit more modern. Perpetua. Let's click that. I'm going to use this one, the tilting MT. And then I'm just going to center that up and pull that down. And that could be established, it could be trademark, it could be, whatever subtext. You don't have to really add that in, but there's quite a bit of blank space, and a lot of people are proud that they've, been in business for however many years, so you want to, throw that in there. It throws a little heritage into the mix. We're going to double click that, go ahead and change the color overlay one more time. And lastly, we're going to create the tree. Now, the tree is actually a file that I have downloaded, a vector file, and I've already imported it from a free resource site. You can find dozens and dozens of different types of trees, evergreen trees, pine trees, just different types of silhouetted trees that you can use. I mean, there's everything, every shape, everything you can possibly imagine as a silhouette people. Whatever you need. If you just need a leaf, which I'll be showing you in a future tutorial, we're going to actually go through and we're going to do Summit Brewing Company, Herbalism Essential Oils, and this one is another vector image, and ATOMIX energy drinks. This is another vector image, which kind of reminds me of like a Coors Light. So in this case, we're not going to go in and we're not going to hand draw this. We're going to go find an image on the web, which I've already pulled. So it comes in a black and white format, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to double click on that layer, and then I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to drag that new layer to the bottom so it's transparent, and then I'm going to go to select color range, and I'm just going to select that white, and then I'll just hit the good old delete button. Oops, make sure you have your layer selected, and then hit your delete button, and there you go, there's your tree. And now I'm going to select all, edit, copy that guy, and we're just going to paste it right into the image here. We're going to go ahead and rotate it by going to edit, transform, rotate, hold shift so it locks to 15 degrees. And lastly, we're going to double click that and give it a good color overlay. Again. And then I'm going to move this tree up so it lines up with that line there. One more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit, transform. I'm going to change the scale really quickly. So the tree is about, we don't want it that small. I want it a little bit bigger, a little bit more prominent, but it still looks proportional to the image. So that looks pretty good. Alright, last thing that I want to do to this logo is see how I've cut out these sections here in the logo, in the triangle. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing in this real quickly. I'm just going to grab the layer mask that we created on this outline triangle. I'm going to grab my rectangular selection tool and I'm just going to drag a box right here. Then I'm going to grab my paintbrush tool, make sure black is selected, and I'm just going to paint black right across those lines. And basically make sure you're editing the mask and it erases those lines without erasing the lines. We're just masking them out. For the top one, I want it at like that V-shaped angle. So what I'm actually going to do for it, slightly different. I'm going to turn back on that triangle layer that we used to help create the outline. And I'm actually just going to hold shift and drag it straight up until it's just past the tree branches, which that actually looks good right there. And then I'm going to select it all with the magic wand tool. Turn that layer off, go back down to that layer mask one more time, and just erase that line, that part of the line. And there you go, Wilderness Outfitters since 1998. What really sells this is the background that it's on. You know this is the style, because if I just came and saw this looks good by itself. I mean, you can kind of see it, but when you're presenting to a client or something, you definitely want to theme it a little bit better. And if I just saw this, I'd be like, it's pretty plain, especially if you had it lined up with a bunch of other logos that you're presenting to them. But if you throw like a themed background into it, really ties it together. And I can really see this, you know, as a logo for a t-shirt or a patch, or you know, this logo for the company. So there you go. And it would be very easy to make this into a square shape that you could use for just you know, social media. You could just pull the tree out itself and use it for social media, just the silhouette of the tree. The other thing is, you definitely want to be sure that whatever like image you're using is royalty free, which basically means you have the rights to use that image, which like I said, I found this on the Vector website. People upload their Vector images and you can download them for free and use them to your heart's content. So Vector Easy, I think, is the name, and I actually get a lot of natural graphics from there, a lot of silhouettes, a lot of things that I can use in as elements to logos. So that's it for this logo, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm Tech Guy from Monkey Kaboom, and see you next time.